Okay, well, welcome to today's show. Uh, I was trying to set up Facebook Live and YouTube Live, but even though I could do Facebook Live previously, it's not letting me do it now. So I'm going to have to look into that. So right now, I'm going to screen share and start the preliminary uh, slideshow, and then I'm going to share some of my new book and training course with you. Welcome to Raising Happy Kids Zoom show, episode 15, the one rule to raising happy kids. During this 1-hour Zoom show, I focus on sharing tips and lessons on the one rule to raising happy kids. Each episode has at least one example of the one rule in action, demonstrating how it helps you raise a happy child. Then we have Q&A and discussion. When I talk about raising happy kids or creating harmony with kids, I bring up the one rule. The one rule equals agreement. Agreement equals harmony. Using the one rule means you find agreement, that's the rule. You find a solution that everyone likes. You've found agreement. You've found harmony. Knowing and following the one rule is all you really need to create harmony between you and your kids. In any situation where there are differences that might lead to conflict between you and your kids, use the one rule. I learned this strategy from 3-year-old children. I was teaching them a complex conflict resolution strategy, actually intended for adults, and they taught me this. So don't think you're in for a rough time. It's simple, it's easy, it's powerful and effective. It works if you use it. I'm glad you're here. Now let's have Q&A and discussion. Okay, that's the beginning. And now I'm going to do another screen share and share some of my latest book and training with you. Let's see. Okay. Start, with the cover. The one rule, which we just talked about, to raising happy kids. Now, let's see what we're going to do next. We could go over the side effects of the one rule. Let me center this a little better. Okay. I made a list of results from using the one rule. The first is harmony with kids. That's kind of obvious, because if you are using the one rule, then you are finding harmony with them. Positive respect mindset. This is what I focused on for many years. It was called the power of respect for a long time, and positive respect in the last few years. This is what I discovered, and now it's taken the form of the one rule, which makes everything a lot simpler, because there was often confusion with the term respect, exactly what it meant when relating with children, because most people didn't think in terms of respect with children in the days that I was doing this. Now I think it is a bit more common, but it's not universal by any means. And the positive respect mindset was very much the mindset involved in the one rule, which is that we are both important, or whoever's involved, we're all important. We all deserve to have good things in our life, and we can figure out how to do that. So those are kind of foundational with the one rule. The thing about the one rule is you don't have to really know much of anything else except that you're going to find agreement, and you're going to find something that you like, and the other people involved, your children, are going to come up with what they like, and between you, you're going to find something that everybody likes. And it may or may not be what the person thought of originally, but it will be something that is enjoyable to them. In fact, at times it could even be more enjoyable than what they had originally thought of. So those three things are what's involved primarily in the positive respect mindset. This is written up in the book. Respectful kids, okay. This is automatically happens because you are being that way with them, so they automatically give it back. It's just what I've seen in all these years I've been doing this, that this is how it works. If you want kids to be respectful, you be respectful first. You be the model, which you are, whether you are intentionally being it or not, that you are being it. And then the kids that you interact with give that same respect back to you. And it even spreads further with anybody who's respectful to them. Confident, yes, definitely, because they are involved in what goes on in their life. They are not just following rules. They, well, except the one rule, they are not doing things, making choices that they don't like. So they get lots of practice. And that helps build confidence, feeling good about yourself because you're involved in all the decisions that affect your life. You get to have your input and you get to be part of finding a solution that everybody likes. Definitely builds confidence. Harmonious, yes, because they have a lot of the skills for building harmonious relationships. They've had lots of practice. And so it just comes naturally to them. Personal clarity. Okay, one thing about this is in order to choose a solution that feels good to you, that you like, you need to be clear on what you like. So using this, having the one rule, having that as your guide, helps you get clear on what's important to you. And it can happen during the process of figuring it out. It doesn't mean that you have to go into a one rule session with knowing. I mean, you may have a very clear idea of what you want, but if you don't, or if it's really contrary to what your child wants, then things are going to flex in the process and you will get even more clear about what matters to you, which is partly your kids, right? That's definitely one of the things that matters most in your world. Okay, the ability to shift your thinking. This is really a very important skill, and you can see maybe how this is something that you would develop as you're using the one rule, because sometimes the solution that is agreeable to everyone might not be exactly what you thought of. So that will involve shifting your thinking. Being a good model, well, I think you can't be a better one than when you're using the one rule, really. Raising trustworthy kids, yeah, because you have a strong bond relationship. You know how they know how you are. They you're coming to solutions together. So I don't think it's really an issue with people that would use the one rule. And before, when I was using the power of respect, there were people who were also had learned this from me, and because I wrote a book on this also. That was my first book, actually. Actually, it was the book that I didn't even set out to write a book, but it turned into a book. And a number of people have told me how helpful it was. Let's go to the next one, ending conflict. That was a big thing in that book, was ending conflict. And in many of the trainings I've given, ending conflict was a very important thing, because when you take this new mindset of we're each important and we each deserve to have good things in our lives, and to choose things that feel good to us, and we can do this. Well, this I know for a fact for many years, not just myself, my family, the people I worked with, but people that got my book and let me know that this kind of thing happened with them. So with the one rule, I think it's going to be even easier and faster. And so it puts an end to conflict. It's like conflict is not really an issue anymore, because you know you're going to find a solution that everybody likes. So there's not a need to fight for what you want. And self-respect, yes, with all this good stuff happening, you do feel good about yourself. Very important, very, very critical, important. Let's see. One thing I wanted to tell you. This might be good. Why and how the one rule works. Apparently, our brain is hardwired to answer questions. When we are asked a question, our brain immediately begins searching for an answer. You can try this. Ask yourself some question, and you'll notice, I tried it, and you'll note, and other people have confirmed this for me too, that immediately my brain starts searching for an answer. The one rule is like asking our brain a question, so it immediately begins searching for an answer. We ask how we can find agreement. That's how there is a direct connection with the 108 tools, skills, and strategies that help solve the problem. There may be more or different solutions, but the 108 is what came up in my life. I realized many years ago that I could sort of divide up things that showed up in my book, because I hadn't set out to write a book, but it turned into a book. And a mission to now basically help kids grow up happy. And this is the tool that has come to me to do that. So I realized that there were tools, skills, and strategies. Anyway, that's what that's about. That one evening I was preparing for a meeting, and I started listing out all the tools, skills, and strategies and it turned out there were 108 of them. So not that, in fact, that's kind of what started this whole one rule thing, was thinking, my goodness, do people really have to learn all of these to be able to raise happy kids? And I realized, of course not, but what's the minimum that they do? And that's how the one rule came about. One really important thing that I learned, and this was from a young woman who got my book, and she actually she had a 2-year-old, and she maybe told her mom about it, but anyway, her mom sent for a book, and I think she lived back east. And then I got a letter from this young woman saying that her younger sister, who still lived at home, was able to stop going to therapy because her mother bought the book and used it. And now her sister finally felt loved. And I realized from this letter that that is one of the most important things that happens in this process. And it happens with the one rule too, is that it keeps a channel open, a channel of love. I mean, because you love your kids, there's no doubt about that. But sometimes that channel gets shut down, especially when you're frustrated um, and you've let like frustration or something like that go into anger, which if you deal with the frustration, it will take care of it and the anger won't happen. This I learned also. I learned from Thomas Gordon, who wrote the book Parent Effectiveness Training. And I'm not sure whether I don't think it was in that book, but somewhere he wrote that anger is a secondary emotion, that before you feel anger, you have felt some other negative emotion or unpleasant emotion like frustration or sadness or I guess those are two of the big ones, but other ones too. And if you deal with those, that anger doesn't develop. So I tried this many, many, many years ago, and found that it was true. That if I would take care of that first thing that came up, the anger just didn't develop, and so it's not really a part of my life anymore. Let's see. The root cause of conflict between adults and kids. This was a very significant kind of revelation to me many years ago when I was first starting out we started a Montessori school in Northern California, which is still going, by the way. And I was concerned with the way adults were treating children because of things I'd learned in the Montessori training. And so it used to bother me, which was kind of rough because even though most of the time I was just with the children, but in the beginning when the parents came and dropped them off, or when in the end when they came and picked them up, and also just in general because this was where we lived and there were always children and adults interacting. And it really bothered me a lot of the time, even though it was the way that I grew up. That was just, that's how adults treat kids. And so that root cause was like a light bulb going off in my mind in terms of what's going on there. And I realized, of course, that nobody's doing anything deliberately. It's not like people really, in fact, a common thing I heard growing up was, this hurts me more than it hurts you. And from the child's point of view, it's like, yeah, right. But from the adult's point of view, they may really believe that, because it doesn't feel good to deliberately hurt your beloved child. So that actually, getting that understanding, that awareness of what was going on, and that's what the root cause is, and it's in this book and it's in my other book too. And it's on my member site. It's one of the things that's an important thing. But one thing that it did was I was able to shift my thinking from being upset with the situation between adults and kids to, well, what can I do about this? What can I do to help it be better? Because I know it doesn't have to be this way. We learned a lot in Montessori training about the importance of childhood and its position in life. In fact, in here, you may have noticed there's a section called Kids Work, where it's brief, but it's talking about the role of childhood in a way. Here's the positive respect mindset. A positive respect mindset is knowing there is a respectful solution and being determined, committed to finding it. It is built into the one rule. See, before, it didn't have the one rule, just you had to be determined and committed. And that's not as easy as having the one rule as your guideline. It's doable, of course, but oh dear. Okay, I'm gonna have a little water. My throat's getting really dry. Living in the desert, very important. I learned about water in a way I'd never known before. Really, really good to have and use. Keeping hydrated. So here's some benefits of using the one rule. Here is some of what you can look forward to when you use the one rule. Kids always feel loved, become competent problem solvers, you can see that, are respectful, learn to make wise decisions because they get lots of practice, have self-respect, are confident. Parents get what they want without struggles. Now that's an important thing, don't you think? Because you are both coming to an agreement, or you are all coming to an agreement, it's not a struggle anymore. It's not like trying to force your children to do what they don't want to do. You're finding something that satisfies everybody. Together, you are finding it. Now, it could be you come up with the idea. It could be they come up with the idea. It could be, who knows, somebody's going to come up with the idea, or together you're going to work out an idea. But no more struggles, no more physically trying to make them do things or punishing them to do things, or that's the big one, is the punishing. Even if it's trying to make them have timeouts, or the thing is, what you're doing is you're deliberately making them feel bad. Instead of this, you can get what you want without struggles. I highly recommend it. I've lived pretty much a life of doing that. You have more time for yourselves as an adult, as a parent. Because if you think of like, okay, once you get in the habit of using the one rule, coming to agreements, it comes so fast. And with small children, it comes fast anyway. But with adults, you're programmed for a lot of years, ways of thinking. It might not come so fast. It might. But anyway, it comes fast. And then there's not all the time spent trying to make somebody else do something they don't want to do. So you get that time for yourself. And because you have the one rule, and it's something that has worked, even though it didn't have the name, the one rule, the concept, it wasn't as clear, but it's worked for years, like over 40 years, it's proven itself. So you can feel confident. And okay, let's see. Yeah, you don't have to wonder. So many parents, it seems, wonder, and with good reason. I mean, because, okay, one thing, when you are punishing a child, you are telling that child in one way or another that they're not okay. What they want is not okay. You're not giving space for them to be who they are, and to work in harmony with the other people around them. If you're into the punishment thing, and not only that, I mean, all this good stuff, fun, peace, quiet, learning, adventure, joy, those things, you're cutting into those big time. So I highly recommend the one rule. Oh my goodness, what do you know? Here's the whole thing I didn't realize I'd done. We did it earlier, going through the side effects of the one rule, but here I'm doing it again in the book. Okay. One thing that I did for the book, because I'd basically created the training, and I had available one chapter of the book, and then circumstances created this, which you'll see. This has the training in it after the book. Now, for the book, I took a lot. I took everything that I had on the one rule, and things that I, especially two of my main books, Parenting for the New Millennium was the first one, and it actually was, I think, the third or fourth version of the first one. And then Good Parents, Good Kids. I took a few things from that and adapted it for here. Other things too, but so it's kind of this is kind of like a culmination of my 40 plus years of focus on this, because I was involved in the Montessori school and raising my children, but it wasn't till my oldest daughter was around 6 that all of this started really taking form, and I made the big change in my behavior that I needed to make. So I wrote about that in my first book, and I may have put some in this book. Here's getting started with the one rule. Oh, yeah, there's a couple of things. One thing, one of the recent changes in this book and in the training was, it was on one of the training sessions that I realized that really one of the best times to take on the one rule is before you have a child, especially I would say when you're pregnant, for sure, start learning this. And then what I realized was that you get like the first, let's say, about 3 years to practice finding harmony with your child, so that once they are ready, which is around the age of 3, they'll be ready to start participating in that. Then, and it could happen earlier, I don't know. I know that a 2-year-old, and I have a chapter in here on that, and I have a chapter in here on earlier than that. But when they start participating, you will be very skilled at finding harmony. And so it's not like you're just starting and your child's already 3 or 7 or 13 or 27. You're starting in the beginning with them, so you're kind of like growing with them in this. Anyway, so there were changes made. Those were the most recent changes. I realized that that the 2-year-old, because of what they're doing, and this is really important and significant, if you have a 2-year-old or relate to 2-year-olds or are going to relate to 2-year-olds, one of the important things they are doing at that time is developing their willpower. So they have to want things. They have to practice wanting, and then they have to practice being determined, and they have to practice persevering until success. So, and I'm sure everybody would like their kids to be able to be successful at what they want in their lives. So, it's very important that you learn how to relate to them in a way that works for them and what they are doing in this stage of their development. And the one rule is going to help you with that. Anyway, there is a chapter in here on that, on relating to 2-year-olds and the one rule, and even with babies. This is another thing of self-talk, how you can help your kids with that, what it means to be a model, because you are trusting kids. The one rule really can help out in this. Frequently asked questions. That's a common one. What if my child runs into the road? Let's see. The last question. Why focus on the one rule and harmony instead of love? Love is there. Love is a given. Unfortunately, when punishment is one of the common ways that parents relate to kids, this does not feel like love to kids. Kids do not feel safe, important, and loved. They are loved, but they don't feel loved. It is so that kids feel loved at all times that we focus on the one rule and harmony. So this chapter is where I added how you go about using the one rule with babies and toddlers. And here is the chapter on 2-year-olds. It is important to understand that human beings of this age are developing willpower, which, if properly developed, will serve them well for the rest of their lives. Willpower has many important functions. It is the power behind wanting, wishing, and desiring. It is the power of determination, of commitment. It is the power that motivates you to action. It is the power to persevere, to carry through. 2-year-olds are constantly practicing, doing their best to create well-developed willpower, which is then put at the service of their intelligence. Their intelligence is at the service of their developmental blueprint. I talked about this earlier, but then their will is used to want what best serves the developing human being. A 2-year-old can be very easy to live with when treated harmoniously. They need to make as many of their own decisions as they can. Whenever possible, follow their lead. If you want them to make a different choice, encourage them by pointing out what they might find interesting and challenging about your choice. If you don't want a major struggle, offer the alternative before they have become determined to pursue their choice. That's the critical thing. Before they have become determined. Once they've become determined, it's a lot easier just to go along with them and choose the first time to change that you can. Otherwise, you're in for a struggle. And this is, their life force is moving them in this direction. So that's who you're struggling with, them and their life force. Next comes the training. Let's see. This is how I learned the one rule. This is the pre-work for the training. I think it's really, really helpful if you do this first of all. As I suggested in chapter 9, I recommend that as soon as you know you are pregnant, you begin, if it is not already your practice, you begin a practice of quieting your mind. It is actually possible to silence your thoughts. In place of thoughts, you get a feeling of bliss. I have found that it is best, most powerful for me to do this first thing in the morning. Then you can tune into that during the day. I've included my pattern interrupt in lesson 6 of this training. It is very helpful to use for tuning in throughout the day. The following list comes from my original Plan for Calm and from more current discoveries. Choose what works for you. Timeout. This keeps coming to mind, so let's start with this. It's best if you explain to your family that in order to keep in a good mood, sometimes you are going to have a timeout. And ask them to please not bother you until your timeout is over. Where? As long as everyone is safe, choose your place. If you need to be present in the room, you might sit in a corner or even just be there listening to something on your earbuds. Enjoyable music, something inspirational or calming. How long? Hopefully, as long as you need to get into a good frame of mind. You could decide beforehand and tell everyone, set a timer, or just tell them you'll stop when you feel good again. During your timeout, do something that is satisfying for you with the intention to feel better. Breathe deep, slow breaths. Read for a while. Listen to music. Play music. Sing. take a shower or bath if you can. Meditate, visualize, work out, dance, call a friend, go work in your shop if you can. Something that makes you feel better. One of my specialties from this list is meditation. I've meditated for about 50 years. To me, meditation is a very personal experience. I've rarely thought of helping people meditate. But recently someone asked me, she asked me when she found out that I used to meditate with my children climbing around on the bed with me. And she was like really surprised and wanted to know how that could happen, that you didn't have to be like alone in silence to meditate. You could be just about anywhere. And that's where the meditating mama came from. Then you have in this training, a training that I developed just before the One Rule. Let's see. Oh, harmonized fast formula. Yeah. You'll see that. This is this getting started with the One Rule. With babies through 3-year-olds. And here is the other, is okay, when I first did something that turned into what is the One Rule, I pointed these 3 things out. They just came into my mind to share. We are each important. You're important. And I pointed to each of the children that were involved in this situation. You're important and you're important. And this is really significant. I would say do that for sure, as it's really a good way, a good, clear, strong way to start out using the One Rule. Not necessary, not critical, not, but helpful. And also that we each deserve to feel good, and we are going to find a way for this to happen. Really good way to start. Now, I just realized it's almost time for the end of this. So if you would like to get the book and the training, they come together, you can just go to my website, and that is happykidsco.com, and you can purchase it there, or you can click and there's a link to more information on it. So, well, I hope you have a great week, and thanks for being part of this.